And the first question says, how do I take the step to start a business that requires inputs that are more way than I think I have capacity for? Let me stop there. I'll break the question into two. The very first thing you have to do, first of all, is to start. If you don't start, you can't know. There's a Chinese proverb that says that if you start, you may win. If you don't, you have already lost. If you start, you may win. If you don't start, you have already lost. So the first step to do is to take the decision. Everything is a matter of decision. Everything, spiritually, physically, even when God decided that he was going to send Jesus to be our savior, God took a decision first to love us. It wasn't because we did anything to merit it or to please him. So the first thing you want to do is to take a decision. But having said that, behind that decision, knowledge must play a big role. It doesn't matter whatever type of business you want to do, you've got to acquire as much knowledge about it before you start. What is the business about? What will it involve? And so on and so forth. You've got to have a checklist of things that you need to know so that you don't make mistake. You know, they tell us that knowledge is power. It's perhaps most true when you are starting businesses. How many people do I need to take? My finances, everything. You have a checklist of, okay, this is what I have in mind. This is what I intend to do. And these are the things that I think will help me to start and progress. Now, how then the other part of your question says, I really want to do this business because it's an area I've always had interest in and it appears lucrative. There's nothing wrong about that, which means that something positive is driving you. It's an area that you have interest in and you believe it is lucrative. So beautiful. So far, everything is good. So all you have to do is make preparation. There is nobody, as the Bible tells us, that wants to go to war without making preparation. You've got to prepare, you've got to know, you've got to, is it the kind of business you can do alone? Is it something that you need others to, to team up with you? Like when we started Prima Garnet, the idea came from me, but I needed people around me. And needing people around you is nothing wrong. Even Jesus Christ, who is God the Son, needed to have 12 disciples around him. He didn't run his ministry alone. So you need to decide, am I going to need shareholders? Am I going to need people maybe who will contribute money? Am I going to need this type of expertise and all that? Where you don't have such information or knowledge, speak to those who can help you. And there are so many. Speak to them. Look, I'm thinking about this. I see that you're already in business. What do you think? You'll find somebody who will be able to support you and who will be able to to help you. And since you are saying that you are sure that it's lucrative, it's not everything that brings in money that is lucrative. Sometimes your cost will override your income. And at that point, you are making a loss. So make sure that you are really sure it is lucrative. What are the things that you need to do to make sure that at the end of the day, you are keeping more than you are spending? This is what something being lucrative is all about. I think let me rest here so that I can have an opportunity to listen to other questions. Well, the person is not in isolation. When I decided I was going to go into business, I wasn't going to have my wife join me because she's in a totally different field. But I also ensured that she wasn't the director on the company. I didn't want to run a family business. I wanted to run a very serious business. I didn't want to run LOLU AKINWUNMI and family. For that, the two of us can decide to do something else entirely. But the kind of business I wanted to run, I didn't want people to look at the list of directors and they will see managing director, LOLU AKINWUNMI, executive director, Josephine AKINWUNMI, another director, Tosin AKINWUNMI. Chances are people will not take you seriously when that happens. So how can you run a business with your wife and keep sanity at home? It depends on the type of business that you want to run. There are some businesses that you can run with your wife. And by the time you are deciding that you are running any business with your wife anyway, the two of you must have understood what the business is about and what it's going to involve, especially your time and all other things that we do in business. There must be clear understanding that this type of business we are going to, this is what is going to involve. We must prepare ourselves emotionally and in terms of mental preparation to know that sometimes some of the things that happen in business may not be right. Let me give you an example. I had a very, very good finance director. He has since left us. I hear he's in Ghana now. And one of the big problems, even though he didn't even start the business we were running, the wife was always uncomfortable that the husband, for example, was meeting men and especially women in the course of his duty. She couldn't stand that. Why, every time I come to your office, why is a woman sitting in front of you? Why, who is missing something, who phoned you? And he would go to learn to say, look, this is my job. I don't have anything to do with them. Some of them are contractors. Some of them are our clients. Some of them are this. Some of them are that. You just got to trust me, which then brings me to the point that there must be a very high level of trust, even if the venture you want to go into is starting a ministry, running a church. There must be understanding. A pastor, a very big pastor in this country, he's relocated for now to Canada, was telling me one day that when he started his business, he had to do his office in such a way that the wife had an office there too, could look into his office and he into her office. So everybody who came in, she saw them and she was very happy. She liked that arrangement, if you understand what I mean. So all of these things, and they had peace. They had peace in the church. They had peace at home. It wasn't a matter of, when I entered your door, who was that woman who was sitting in front of you? What were you people saying? How come she has spent 1 hour with you already? The other people normally spend 30 minutes with you and things and stuff. In fact, at times he would call her to join him at some ministrations and at some discussions. So your question is not a bad question at all. And the first thing you need to do is to have understanding and to keep carrying your wife along as much as possible. Put her in the picture of everything there are, so that she doesn't accidentally discover anything. Not only are you partners at home, you are also partners at work. And she has a right, just as you also have a right, to know as much as you do and as much as she does as well. And with the grace of God, everything should go reasonably well. Fall. I've had 2 appointments from the government, but none of them stood in the way. I did say something yesterday that, look, the big problem we have is not that we don't have enough time. The big problem we often have is because we don't manage our time well. So to that extent, there was a time, with natural fact, I had 2 concurrent political appointments. I was in charge of rebranding for Nigeria. I was the CEO. And while that was going on, I was also appointed as chairman of APCON. But let me put the caveat. I have never been a full-time pastor. In the 2 churches where we have been, I have been a minister, but I have never been a full-time pastor. I mean, there are people whose ministry in the church requires them being full-time. I've not been full-time at all. So maybe that has also helped me a bit. But having said that, what I try to do, because even while I had the government appointments, if you want to call them political appointments, I also had my normal work schedule in the office at Prima Garnet. And then I had my home schedule also as a husband and a father. And I promise, I mean, once in a while, some things might stand in the way, but overall, nothing affected. One thing did not affect the other. Sometimes you'd be at home and the minister might call and say, Lulu, we need to see urgently tomorrow in Abuja. And my wife would understand that, look, at that point, I would have to travel. I would also tell them in the office that maybe I might not be at work for a day or two because I had to be in Abuja and stuff like that. But generally speaking, I didn't have any conflict. I didn't have any problem about pastoring, and I still taught in the church, and I still did whatever assignments I had to do in church. And if I wasn't going to be around, of course, I would have told the pastor ahead that, sorry, pastor, I may not be around for a couple of days and all that. But otherwise, I never had a problem at all. The highest level, maybe general manager, executive director, and all that, you know, I think it's something the Americans developed. See, whoever asked this question, of course, from what I can see, must be a very ambitious person. And again, that is very, very good. What skills do you need? There are so many skills you need, but one of the things I mentioned in the church on Sunday was that you've got to develop yourself. In any place of work, even in the church, wherever you are, what will distinguish you from another person is the quantum of knowledge that you have. It is what is going to single you out and make you different. If there are 5 pastors in a church and you have one that devotes a whole lot of his time to studying, rigorously, seriously studying the Word of God, listening to messages of men and women who have dedicated themselves to the Word of God, and also prayerful, his response and his ministry will be different from somebody who just picks his Bible maybe in the morning when he's going to church on Sunday. So preparation is very critical. Invest so much in knowledge acquisition. The more you know, the more valuable you are to the organization, the more valuable you are to the clients. Invest so much in that. That will always stand you apart. Then have very, very good relationship with the people you work with, either at your level or above you. Show that you are a team player so that they can depend on you. Show that you are reliable. Show loyalty. Show commitment to the things of the organization. All of these things are critical. Even when you are not aware of it, people are watching you. Some people are watching you, and when maybe they are having very senior meetings, they are saying, oh, that person. I'll give you an example. There's a particular course program that Unilever in Africa always organizes. It's called the Unilever Africa Marketing Program. It's for very senior people, C-suite people. And usually they will send you for this. They will send you for this course only maybe when you've gotten to the level of general manager or director. But they sent me when I wanted to say an ordinary senior manager. Why did they send me? I was the most junior person they ever sent who benefited from the course. And even when we were part of the Ogilvy Worldwide, you know, with over 200 offices in maybe 180 countries, I was also the first person in Africa to be selected to go for a very expensive, very, very senior course. And I wanted to know why, and they said, oh, we had observed this, we had observed that. I was also the first African. So which means that somewhere along the line, they had been watching, they had observed maybe attitude to work and all that. And of course, the grace of God as well. So follow all of these things, be diligent, be dedicated, be honest, be committed, invest in knowledge, all the things that you need to do. Let them realize that you are very valuable. And I promise you that it will be a matter of time before you are moved up to that C-suite. And when they have moved you, do let us know so that we can come and rejoice with you.
This question says, hello, sir. How do I find, start, and maintain meaningful relationships and friendships with successful people?
Very, very interesting, very good question. Let me give you an example of what somebody I know did. Ours is an interesting profession. And then one day I was in the office and someone, the head of another agency, it was my birthday actually, and I'd never met him, but I of course, I knew the name of his agency. He was the CEO, just like I was the CEO. And I received from him a beautiful cake and a big birthday greeting card. And of course, I was surprised. And naturally, I was delighted. And I picked my phone and called him and thanked him. And he said, look, when can I come and see you? And having received this cake and his card, it was impossible for me to say, you can't come. So we fixed an appointment and he came and we talked. And he said, look, one of the reasons why I'm doing this is because I want to be close to you. I like the things I read and hear about your business, how well you people are doing. Ours is a smaller company, but I want to grow. And I believe that one of the ways I can grow is to mix and interact and make friends of people who are doing well. And it was impossible for me to say no. And today, he's, without any doubt, one of my closest friends and associates. And in actual fact, you've got to believe this. Just a few years ago, that their small company was the best performing agency in Nigeria in terms of profit margin. So he came to me, that was one way of doing it. But there are many other ways of doing it. And these days we are very fortunate. We have the social media. And one of the best contact media is LinkedIn. Most people still don't understand how well they can make use of LinkedIn. I've had people, even from as far away as Holland, who got in touch with me, who had read some of the lectures I posted on LinkedIn. And one of them said, look, this is what I do. I'm in this field. I'd like to be your friend. I'd like for you to mentor me and all that. And it wasn't going to cost me anything. Most of it was going to be done online anyway. And today we are very, very good friends. And I believe that we are supporting each other. So you can use the advantage of social media. If there's any particular person, especially in your field, that you identify, you can reach out to them. And most of the time, they will not drive you away. Even if they are too busy to attend to you, chances are they link you up with someone who is senior enough in their organization, and I've had to do that, who also will support you. So mentoring is a good thing, especially when you discover the right kind of people, who can help you in your growth and in your business relationship. So go on ahead and reach them if you can. If you can't, you have the opportunity of going through things like LinkedIn. Another thing you can do, of course, is to make sure that you join some credible associations. And there are quite a few of them that are good business associations where you know that you have the opportunity to meet people, like the Institute of Directors. It's not just for directors alone, it's also for senior managers. There is a wide pool and collection of experienced people. They organize seminars, they do all kinds of things. You know, you can reach them And you find out that overall it's not too bad. If you can afford it, you can go for training in a place like Lagos Business School, and they have special sessions for business people. And part of it is that you have the opportunity to link up with people and form relationships as well. So these are some of the things that I know that you can do. These are the things that I know that work quite well. The first one is something that has always attracted me. In actual fact, on the issue of legacies, I did start on a project which unfortunately I have suspended for a while. I did start on a project. I wanted to find out why many Nigerian companies do hardly outlive those who start them. You know, you are in other parts of the world like the UK, and you see so-and-so boot makers since 1789. We're talking of 3 generations. And here, some of the big names, businesses that I knew growing up, like Odutola and all of these people, those businesses don't exist anymore. What are the things that are responsible? Of course, with the benefit of knowledge that I've had since then, I can tell you why some of them hardly outlive the owners and are hardly passed on to the next generation. So how do you leave a legacy? First of all, it's got to be a decision that I would like to pass this organization. Not necessarily, leaving a legacy doesn't necessarily mean passing them on to your children. No. If God gives the grace that you have children that are interested in that business, that is fine. But legacy means handing it over to a responsible set of managers and people that can carry it on from your generation to the other, carry it on successfully. And it's not easy at all. And how do you do that? You start by the building blocks, the things that you build into it from the beginning. What are the things that make a business to be successful? So many of them doing it well, investing in people, investing in infrastructure, investing in resources. Of course, depending on what type of business, is it service-oriented? Is it manufacturing? All of these things you need to do. Then you've also got to be disciplined. We did a small research on the petroleum business where they make a lot of money. And we found out that most service stations hardly last for a long time, except when they are owned by Mobil or Chevron or these multinationals, the local ones. Why? We found out that as long as the money comes, the owner goes to marry a second and third wife or goes to build a big house in his village with too many rooms, where in a few years, nobody can maintain the money. And then he remembers he has to do the funeral of the father that died 20 years ago. All of these frivolities. He's not investing in the business. He's not improving staff welfare. He's not doing things that will make the business to go on. So this is very, and it happens in our line of business too. The casualty rate also is high. So if you are going to build something that has legacy, you've got to invest in all of this. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to even start by putting yourself on salary. I have friends who are running business and they are not on salary. They just say, hey, and they just simply take the money and go and spend it. The business cannot last. There has to be the discipline. And I've run a group of companies since 1992. I have never once fixed my own salary. I use professionals, accountants, HR people. They make recommendations to me and they defend the recommendation. But I've never sat down to say that as group MD, I'm going to earn 10,000 in a month. I get professionals to do it who will look at the well-being of the company. What can we afford? And all that. These are the kinds of things that will make the business to go on. Sometimes you are lucky or blessed. The The operating environment will help you. Sometimes you are not so lucky, like doing business in this country at this point in time. It's very tasking, but generally speaking, if you commit to all of these things, your business will go on. Your business will go on. You are not handed. I know somebody who handed his business to his son, and the bank has closed down today because the son mismanaged it. That was a tactical error. He should have hired a manager who was more competent than the son. Another bank took over this bank 3 or 4 years ago. So those are decisions that you will need to take if you want to build a legacy and a name that will outlive you and continue for many generations. Pastor Soji, you have to help me with the second question now.
Okay. He said, what age is ideal to start building wealth that can be passed from parents to children's children, or passed down the legacy as a legacy?
The day you start earning income, sir, the very day you start earning income. You know, I have 2 sons, as you know. And one day I was talking with the older one, and he said, Daddy, both of them live in the UK and they work in the UK. And he said, Daddy, it's so difficult, the cost of living, blah, 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 to even save. I said, don't say that. I said, don't make the mistakes that our own generation made. Don't say that. It doesn't matter how small the amount that you are earning is. If you want to save, you will always save. And whatever you save is what you have not spent. And we had, a lot of conversation on this. And, he took me seriously and he started saving. Many of you will know Pastor Felix Ohiwere. He was the chairman of Nigerian breweries. And, he would tell you that, look, or Ambassador Kolade, that you start planning for your retirement and all that from the day you start work, because you can never earn enough for you to reasonably save. I remember when I was in Linters, I was earning maybe about, in those days, in the 80s, I was earning maybe 500, 600 naira a month, which was a lot of money. I had friends who were working in merchant banks who were earning maybe nearly twice that. And they used to come to me to borrow money before the end of the month. They were earning more than me, but I was cutting my coats to my size. At lunchtime, I would not order this and that and order that and that and all of those. But if you met them at lunch, if you saw the way they were eating, you would know that very soon they would not have too much to spare. And that is the way it is. The best way, whoever asks that question, is to have a deliberate, any scheme that will help you to save, join it. In many offices, like our office, we have a scheme for staff to save, almost like compulsory saving. And it's regulated by Lagos State. And we do it very, very well. In fact, we do it so well, on whatever you save, you also get interest at the end of the year. And many people have, through that, bought land, they have built their houses, they would borrow money against their savings and all that. So the point I'm trying to do is to encourage that. Start from the very day you start off. Don't wait until you think you earn so much money. That day will never come, because as you earn more money, your needs and your taste will also grow. So just note this. If you haven't been doing it, make sure that from the end of this month, when you are paid your salary, you've got to put something aside. Look at your expenses. Cut down where you have to. You cannot have everything. Decide that from this month, I'll put X amount together, and you'll be surprised how much you have, at the end of the day. I don't believe in that. I mean, what is business? Business is the ability. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And I preached in a church one day, and I told them that church business is God business, that even managing a church is business. Whatever it is that makes you to take money from people and to spend on behalf of the congregation, there's nothing spiritual about that. You don't need an angel to come and manage that from you. The church is a collection of human beings, but who are spiritual. So the business of running running a church is also, it's got its business side. And there's nobody who does not have the capacity to do one type of business or the other. The simplest type of business in the world is buying and selling. Buy clothes from somebody at 5 naira, sell it at 7 is the easiest, is the most convenient. Of course, it graduates and it can become quite complex as the petrochemical plant that Aliko Dangote has just set up. So I don't believe that. If you want to do business, the most important thing is to discover in what area you want to do business. You cannot just say that I'm going to go into that business because my friend is successful in it. Find out, I did say that on Sunday, find out a lot about it. See what it's going to involve. Do you have the capacity, the capability to go into that line of business and all of the research you need to do? But to answer the primary question, yes, everybody can do business, but we won't do it the same way. Some people, God has given them the gift to think better than other people. We all don't have the same, we don't think the same way. We are not brainy the same way, but for the quantum of grace that God has given you, yes, everybody can do business. I think I may be the right person to answer that. When we were going to start Prima Garden, I had friends, I had uncles who had a lot of money, who could have brought down all of the money that I needed. But in my mind, I also wanted to set it up with Christians because the vision I had was God inspired, and I believed that Christians would better understand it. And so out of my maybe 5 or 6 initial shareholders, 2 of them were from my church. They were pastors in my church. In fact, my first chairman was also a pastor in my church. There was another person who was not in my church, but who had been an old friend, who also was a pastor and a businessman. And so if you add me, we must have had about 4 or 5 pastors. Everybody was a Christian. Not everybody was a pastor. And I was quite happy about that. I have an uncle who's a Muslim and who is a nice person, really, really good man, who could have invested as well. But at that point, I didn't feel led. Now, having said that, I also found out that being a Christian does not necessarily mean that they will be good business partners. Some of the biggest problems I had was from 2 pastors, and I had no choice. Eventually, I had to remove them from the board. I had to, at an AGM in Sheraton Hotel, I had to remove them because they were behaving in a way that did not show or suggest that they believed in certain Christian virtues. They didn't keep their promises. I don't want to go into the details, but it was quite clear to me that for us to maintain our relationship and not fight or become enemies, I had to separate them from they still remained shareholders, but they were removed as directors. And then we had peace in the company. And so, yes, I would advise, and yes, it would be nice to do businesses with Christians, but it should not be the first consideration. I'm speaking now as LOLU AKINWUNMI. It should not be the primary consideration. It must be because you have seen other virtues and values in them that they can bring into the business. And when money comes in, trust me, and you can quote me, when companies or businesses begin to do well, many Christians are not different from unbelievers. They show greed, they backbite, they do all kinds of things because That is the effect that money, big money, has on people. They are demanding all kinds. You begin to sit back. See, I'll give you an example. I have someone, he's still a director, and at some point, he didn't tell me. He went to meet a lawyer to give a proposal on how we could rearrange the shareholding of the company so that all of us would have it alone. He had forgotten that I invited them and sold shares to them, but because the business was doing very well, he wanted more. And unfortunately, the lawyer he even went to meet happened to be a friend who didn't tell me. I didn't know until we got to the board meeting. And I was in shock. And I said, but what you are asking, and I'm surprised your lawyer is advising you, you cannot change our shareholding structure. What we have is what we have. We cannot dissolve the company and rearrange it. There's nothing like that under corporate practice. And I was very upset with him. And he very nearly left the company. We were able to manage it and patch it up. A pastor, very good man, by the way, but he went into error there. And I'm happy that we're able to patch it up. So having Christians is good, but I think most important thing is to have people that can add value to the business. If they also are Christians, committed Christians, then it becomes something that is extra.
I think if I'm wrong, sir, correct me. I think what I'm hearing there is that trying to avoid trouble, even if the people you are partnering with are Christians or members of your church, is inevitable. Probably it's now a balance between what value am I getting from them and the weight of the headache I'm going to receive from them.
Yeah.
Then I make a decision.
Yeah. And you need to take a firm decision for the sake of the company. I mean, it was a difficult thing for me to remove the three of them on the board, but I had to do it for the sake of the company because the signs, the things I was seeing from them, I knew that if I didn't, in a matter of years, we would have problems. And you hear friends going to court and doing all of those things. I didn't want any of that to happen. So I had to nip it in the bud, and we haven't had any trouble since then.
If a follow-up to that before we leave that particular question. Now, this is what happened in the boardroom, even though they were church members. How did that affect the church? I can imagine a scenario where one of them would have reported to the pastor, knowing that the pastor may be able to prevail on you on one or two things. How does that affect us seeing ourselves on Sunday in church or during Bible? And how did the church handle those kind of scenarios? Because some people can actually start businesses without the permission of the church in any way. So how does the church manage in case there's a crisis between church members running businesses?
Great. First of all, a little bit of background. When that business was going to start, I didn't mention to the pastor. And that was the late pastor, I was in Bethel. I didn't mention to him, but God is awesome. Every time we met on Sunday or during the week, the man would be preaching and suddenly he would look in my direction and say, Pastor Lulu, the Lord is telling me you are going to live where you are working. You are going to start this kind of... And it was as if he had been sitting at our meetings. And I would wonder that, God, this is awesome. But I never, not once, ever did I sit with him and say, this is what we are planning to do and all that and all that. It wasn't out of pride. I just was trying to keep that portion away from him. I didn't want undue influence. If I needed to speak with him, I would have done that. So, and then when this thing happened, none of them, only one of them at that point was a member of my church. Well, he couldn't go to report to the pastor because he knew that what we did was legitimate, what we did was right, what we did was legal and lawful. What was he going to tell the pastor? That we removed him. We didn't collect his shares. And being on the board of a company is a privilege. It is not a right. So he didn't report to the pastor. And today we're still extremely good friends, very, very good friends. We're able to resolve it. He saw sense in what I did. Maybe he was angry Maybe he then had to forgive me. I don't know. But I mean, everything went on well. Not once did I ever sit with the pastor to tell him and all that. Maybe if it was another kind of business, I would mention to him. But I didn't feel led to do that at all. And so far, so good. Possible, but they have to take a decision. Let me give a small example. When Prima Garnet started and we were growing it, we didn't have our children on time. They didn't come until nearly 8 years into the marriage. And when they came, my wife was the training manager in a very big organization back home. She was looking after maybe about 1,000 staff. She was on the upward move. I was on the upward move. Both of us were young professionals. And then the children came. First of all, Tosi came, and a year or two later, Shani came. And it occurred to us that, well, we could manage, but to bring them up properly, to have time for them to be home when they return from school, to help them with their homework and all sorts of things, she had to step down a bit on her career. She had to do that. There were things that she had to postpone. And I think that would answer your question as well. The husband and the wife must sit down and have a series of discussions. Do we depend so much on the income from the two of us? Is it very critical? Do we need one of us to be around, especially to look after the children and guide them so that it's not the nanny or somebody else who guides them? Do I need to spend more time as the woman of the house to look after the house and bear the responsibilities that are expected from a wife and a mother, even if my career is going to suffer, maybe in the short term? And later on, when the children grew a little older, my wife even changed profession. She went to study law. And at some point also, when she started her law practice, the children were now in the secondary school and needed a lot of time. She stepped down. She didn't start her own law firm. She stepped down on this until they had grown and they had now left secondary school before she started her own law firm and all that. So everything would have to be weighed. Something has to give into something. And it's at the end of the day, the right decision has to be made, even if you have to sacrifice or if something has to suffer a little bit temporarily.
Thank you, sir. If I got the point clearly, sir, it was after the kids were settled that mommy went to study law or establish.
That was stage one. She was able to study law because it gave her a lot of time, more time than if she was still the training manager at Bako. She had a lot of time, because she was doing this as an evening student. So she had a lot of time for this. She was able to adjust this. Qualified as an HR practitioner. And she was doing quite well, but we just felt that, look, it would be good to add law to whatever it was that she had. That's why she went into law. But she couldn't set up a practice until they were safely concluding secondary school, and then had to leave the country for further studies abroad. Then she had a lot of time. She didn't have to worry about staying late or working late and all that and stuff.
Thank you very much. I think the challenge I'm picking there is that if I'm still a young mother or a young father, I can still go back to school and study a lucrative course or a lucrative discipline like law. We're not talking about a year or 2-year course. We're talking about...
For her, it was about, because she was an evening law student, I think about 4 years or 5. Let me surprise you. Just 2 or 3 days ago, I was talking to a friend of mine who has been working, married, but now she's studying simultaneously in a university in the UK, law, first and master's, they have allowed her to study LLB and LLM at the same time. The first time I was hearing that, and this at Buckingham University, because they looked at her experience, her so many things. And if there's one program I always wanted to do, it's law. And I said, look, can't I go to Buckingham? I'll never practice law because I want to practice as a lawyer in court. It's just a desire to learn more. I even told them at the university where I am lecturing that, look, I'd like to do a PhD. And they said, sorry, you can't do your PhD here because we don't have any lecturer or professor who is experienced enough to supervise you. Maybe you have to go and do it in Unilag or UI or somewhere. But I'm prepared to study. There's no end to the capacity to study. I'm not studying because I want to make money. I'm not studying because I want to be addressed as Dr. LOLU AKINWUNMI. I'm studying because I love acquiring knowledge that can be useful to me and to the society. So don't be surprised if maybe sometime next year you hear that I've become a law student in one of the universities. I'll probably be the oldest student in the class, but I think I will still enjoy myself. Between us and the congregation here, there is no absolute guarantee, as hard as that may sound. But one thing I know that matters a great deal is the foundation. If you have grown up your children on sound foundation, chances are they will not depart from it. Sound moral foundation, sound Christian foundation, everything that is right and proper, chances are they will not depart from it. You see, we keep talking about being abroad. I was in the secondary school from Form 1 to 5. And I had the grace, that was in Nigeria here, but I attended an American school that was very free. The school set up by Americans and Canadians. And most times, our parents were not with us. And the school was so free, we could virtually do anything. From Form 3, students were doing things I cannot even mention here. And yet, most of us survived them. That's number one. So the foundation of what you have inculcated in your children is very critical. The second one, and thank God for the grace of technology, is that we're always in touch with them. We're always talking with them. WhatsApp makes this possible. Even when I don't have the time, I don't think 2 days would pass without my wife speaking to the children. Every morning, at least, we send messages to them, even if we don't talk. And we insist that they respond. And, we brought them up to be very, very free. Don't hide anything from us, no matter how bad, no matter the kind of mistake you make. Share it with us. Don't be afraid that maybe, are these people going to be angry with me? Yes, we may be angry with you, but we will not condemn you. We'll sit down together and find a solution to it. So don't hide anything, no matter how little. So they tell us everything. And sometimes I tell them, that's nice, but if I were you, this is what I would do. So right from when they were young, we treated them as adults. We never hide anything from them. They never hide anything from us. And we pray together. Every day we pray together. We compel them in the beginning, and they pray on their own. They will, and you hear them when they talk. I say, oh, Daddy, this thing, I'm going to do it next week. By the grace of God. They understand, they go to church, they have good Christian friends, and we never stop petitioning God on their behalf, that God should show mercy on the family, God should show mercy on them. Where they are, nobody sees them except God. And if the same God who sees them has the ability to look after them, then we can trust God to do that. Those are the things that have worked for us. Some of the things that have worked for us. See, the first thing I want to establish and assure whoever the person is and other people is that all businesses have, let me use an expression we're all used to, they have downtime. Sometimes there's a result of the mistake you have made. Sometimes it's a result of the operating environment. As of today, the Nigerian operating environment is very hostile to business. Most people know us about the businesses that we run that are successful. And I'm always quick to let them know, just like I'm letting you know today, that we invested, I'm talking of 15 years ago, we invested at least 30 million each on two businesses that failed. They failed. Everything we did for Prima Garnet and our businesses that are doing well, we did in those businesses, and yet they failed. We lost, for that period, a cumulative amount of about 60 million. So businesses will succeed. Businesses, there was a time, even Prima Garnet, that many people know about, we had problems. We lost accounts, our foreign partners, we were in court. It looked, there were days it looked as if, look, this business is gone. It got so bad. We were owing our landlord, they cut our light, they cut our water. I would have given up, but for God who sustained my faith. But we kept on, and there was a turnaround. God turned it around. Everything we knew how to do, all of the things we had learned in business school, we did. But it looked as if nothing was just going to happen. And that will happen. So the first step, the gentleman or lady who sent the question is, you got to find out what really is wrong. Why is your business that was doing well before, why is it now in this state? Is there anything you ought to be doing that you are not doing, or something that you are doing and you are not doing well? You've got to determine, and if you are careful, even if you can't do this by yourself, if you can get somebody who has expertise in it, they can help you analyze your business and say that, look, part of the problem is X, Y, Z. If you slow down on that, there was a time, a big problem was that our salary bill was too high. In a year, our salary bill alone was between 300 and 400 million naira. And it was unsustainable. And it was giving us, literally speaking, it was giving us such a tough time until we analyzed and we decided that what we were paying was too high, and we were paying too many people. We had too many people because the business had grown very quickly. So we had to cut down, we had to reduce costs, we had to do so many things. So this person needs to do that. At least find out what is wrong. Is this something that you can find solution to? Is this something that, on the other hand, is being affected because of the general lull in the economy? If it is that, then you must decide. We had to reduce 4 years ago the number of our staff. About half of them had to go because the Nigerian economy was bad, because COVID-19 was there. We had to take other steps to work from home to reduce the cost of working in the office, diesel costs, transport costs, so many things. Those are the things that have helped us to, to survive. So you have to sit down and take a couple of survivalist decisions, whatever your business is. If you don't take them, then one day there will not be any business there to run. And in addition, if year in, year out, you have found out that your income, your revenue is reducing, maybe that line of business, there is no more demand for it. Is it time for you to invest in a corollary business, in another line of business, so that you can support and uphold the primary business? All of these things a consultant can help you with if it's something that you cannot do on your own. So, because I don't know the nature of business from this person, I'm limited in how much advice I can give. But these are routine things that you read up in business books, or they will teach you in business schools. These are some of the things that you need to do and all that. Talking about it, bringing the question, half the problem is already solved. It means that you are aware that something is not right. And I commiserate with you on the loss of your dear one, but life must continue. And if you have an opportunity to speak with that person, the person will tell you, the dearly departed will tell you that, my dear husband, wife, brother, whatever, you cannot sit down in the rut. You got to pull yourself up. Life has to go on for many reasons. Because of the people who are alive, life has to go on. You got to pull yourself together. You got to pray. You got to take a decision that every day I will go on. I will continue. I won't give up. There'll be days when things will be extremely difficult. And this is the role of the church. Somebody in the church, your pastor can counsel you, can comfort you, and all that, but you cannot give up. If you give up, the only answer that comes from giving up is failure. You got to keep on going on. You got to pray. You got to ask God for strength, even when it's very, very difficult. You've got to join prayer groups, people who can support you in prayer. All of these things must happen. But please, I'm pleading with you, I'm begging you, don't, that we're even discussing it is a very good sign. Don't give up. Don't give in. Keep going on. The strength of the Lord is more than sufficient for you. And I believe that as we speak, God will send help and strength unto you. Let me take the last one first. I've always told people that, look, there is nothing fundamentally wrong about Japa. But you've got to, again, like everything in life, you've got to be very sure and you've got to plan it well. Once at 4 a.m., one day I was at the Victoria Station in London. I was going to take a flight at Heathrow that would take me to France and then bring me to Nigeria. And I saw this person sweeping the floor at the Victoria Station. And for some reason, I think we had conversation. In fact, it happened to me twice. And in both cases, they were graduates. I think one had an HND, one had a master's degree. And I said, how? Why? Tell me why you are doing this. And he said, well, I thought that if I left home, and I said, what time did you have to wake up to get to this job? And he said, 3 o'clock. And I said, I promise you, young man, whatever it is that you are doing in Lagos, if you wake up at 3 a.m. to approach it, it will serve you better. I said, the bad thing, the one thing they will never tell you about working abroad is their tax system is so efficient. If you are not careful, you have very little of that money to keep. Okay, it's good when you send £100, and these days it gives a lot of money, but it won't always be so. The opportunities are still here. Foreigners, Indians, Americans, they are still bribing to get our visas to come and work here. What are they seeing that we are not seeing? So JAPA is not bad, but JAPA has to be based on very good decision. If you are a professional whose skills are really needed and whose skills are appreciated, maybe a teacher, maybe a nurse, maybe a doctor, maybe an architect, maybe this and that, it's fine. If you have done your homework well, it's really good. Go there and prosper. There is nowhere where you can't prosper. But if you are going because somebody sent a picture to you, don't forget, they will never tell you about their suffering, that they do 2 or 3 jobs. They will never tell you all of those. And by then it may be too late to come back. That is about JAPA. So I'll advise you, if the opportunity is there, and if it's good opportunity, by all means, take it and go there. Incidentally, my 2 sons have 2 different opinions. Tosin, who you know both of them, doesn't want to stay and work there for too long. He wants to come back home. And he's got a very, very good job. He's a lawyer, he's a business associate. His younger brother, on the other hand, doesn't want to come back. He's got a very good job too. So look at 2 different situations. They are earning well. They are doing well. One wants to come back to Nigeria. He sees loads of opportunities in Nigeria. The other one doesn't want to come back to Nigeria. But the decision at the end of the day will be their own, even if I advise them. Now, your first question, somebody wants to, what do you mean by saying you want your money to work passively for you? That is, I'm assuming that means putting your money in
Investment.
some kind of investment. Oh, there are no.
Yes.
The easiest and cheapest form of investment today in Nigeria is fixed deposit. It's the easiest, zero energy. You put your 100,000 with them and they give you maybe, I don't know what percentage they are giving now. It's the cheapest form of, and it's also the one with the lowest form of risk. Every investment comes with risk. Even when you have your money in the bank, many people don't know that if a bank fails, it's only a percentage of that money that you can get back. So all investments are loaded with risk. But if you are adventurous and if you are ready to take, the more risk you take, most cases, the more the opportunity to make more money. But I always tell people, speak with professionals. Don't do it because someone else is doing it. Speak to people who understand investment. Let them sit with you. Let them advise you the risk and return on every investment. For example, I know a friend, as funny as it may sound, he bought about 15 or 20 Okada and gave them to people he could trust. And he was making so much money. But of course, at the end of the day, they started telling him lies and all that and stuff. But there are many investments, depend on how much money you have. If you speak with professionals, they can tell you, and nothing is too small to use as investment. You can buy land, you can do many things. So, but if you are not, if you don't have that kind of orientation, my advice for you is to speak with those who have the knowledge and the experience, and they will guide you so that at least the risk is reduced. There's risk in every investment, but the risk is minimized and you don't lose your hard-earned money. Thank you, everybody, for being part of this. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I look forward to other forms of interaction that God will help us to have in the future.
Amen.